You're worth less than dog food. Go on, admit it. Well, I never thought I'd face such degradation. Despite our marriage being relatively new, I've tried to meet this woman's demands in my own way, but it seems it's all for nothing. She might as well be an alien. It would explain everything. I don't understand her language anymore, and I'm done trying. My name is Allison. At 32, I work in an office. Influenced by my game-obsessed older brother, I've loved games since childhood, particularly role-playing games that transport me to fantastical worlds. Over the years, I've made many friends online, including my husband, Carmine. We bonded over our shared love for games, favorite characters, and spells. When a new game was released, we'd always buy it together. After years of this connection, our friendship turned into romance, and we decided to get married. Carmine's family consists of his father, Stanley, who is frequently away on solo assignments, and his mother, Bianca, a housewife. Stanley's job keeps him away from home most of the year. Carmine's grandmother, Stanley's mother, lives with them and has been battling Alzheimer's for several years. Her condition worsened recently, with her hearing declining, making conversations difficult. Her sudden forgetfulness when Stanley was away must have been a shock. Bianca has been caring for her since Carmine lived alone before our marriage. I sometimes wondered if I'd end up taking care of a stranger who isn't even my parent someday. Fortunately, both of Carmine's parents are healthy, so that seems far off. I was completely at ease until one fateful phone call. On my day off, after catching up on housework, I was engrossed in my favorite game when an unfamiliar sound disrupted me. Oh, it's a ringtone. I rarely receive calls, so I have forgotten my own ringtone. When I saw the caller I tensed up. It was Bianca. It was my first call from my mother-in-law, and although I was nervous, I answered quickly, fearing something might have happened. Hello. You're late. It's basic courtesy for an adult to answer promptly when a superior calls. The sarcasm in her voice made me want to hang up immediately, but I held back. I'm sorry. I'll be more prompt in the future. What do you need? As if you have anything better to do on your days off, playing that incomprehensible toy. You should be working to your duties as Carmine's wife. She instructed me to visit her home on my next day off and hung up. I was stunned, grappling with the unexpected sarcasm. I considered ignoring her request, but since she's Carmine's mother, I decided it might be best to at least listen to her. I reported the call to Carmine that night. I'm really sorry. It's probably going to be a hassle. You don't have to go. I found some comfort in Carmine's response, though it still frustrated me. There's a place I always go after work. Hello. Oh, Allison, what's wrong? Susan from the pottery school greeted me with her warm smile and those words. I usually start lightheartedly, but today, I was completely absorbed in my troubles. Susan, who is about the same age as my grandmother, but remains strong and attentive, has become a motherly figure to everyone. Pottery is enjoyable, but I come here mostly to talk to Susan. Listen to this, Susan. I got a rare call from Bianca, and it was nothing but a parade of sarcasm. She said, "You must be free, or do your duty as a wife." I didn't expect to be told such outdated things. Susan listened attentively, her expression unchanged. Just ignore Bianca. There are still people with old-fashioned views around. Those who make such demands are often indulgent with themselves. My son's wife is just like that. I may not have Bianca's approval, but I'm surrounded by kind people. It naturally makes me want to try harder. So, on my next day off, I followed Bianca's instructions and went to my in-laws' home. When I arrived and parked, Bianca was already waiting on the porch. It was intimidating, but I tried to stay composed and greeted her. Good morning. The norm is to arrive 30 minutes early. Don't keep your superiors waiting, she said. Despite arriving early, I felt like leaving immediately. I understand punctuality for work, but why should I be reprimanded for her arbitrary standards? Arriving 30 minutes early might be inconvenient for others. I was still 10 minutes early, but before I could respond, she cut me off. Don't talk back. Am I running a military operation here? I sighed and resigned myself. I decided that no matter what happens, I will never open my heart to this person again, and I'll refuse to care for her in her old age, even if offered a large sum of money. I refuse. Really? You're late for the appointment. Well, I'm off now, Bianca said, preparing to leave. I stopped her. Wait a minute. You called me here without any explanation, and I don't understand what's going on. Well, I'm going out until tonight. From now on, you'll need to come here on your days off to do housework and look after the person in the back room. With that, Bianca drove away. She was the hardest person to communicate with. though she seemed kind. When I met her with Stanley and Carmine, that wasn't the case at all. I considered leaving without doing anything to avoid further scolding. But more than that, I wanted to meet my grandmother-in-law. Bianca had mentioned her, but since she didn't seem to understand, Bianca decided on her own that I didn't need to attend the family wedding. We only had a simple meal, and there was no formal wedding ceremony. Later, Carmine and I planned to visit her together, but our days off never aligned, and embarrassingly, we never managed to. As I opened the entrance door, a shocking sight greeted me. The place was filthy. It wasn't quite a full-blown garbage house yet, but it was clear it was heading that way. The room was cluttered with a sea of belongings, and a mountain of laundry both clean and dirty spread across the floor. The kitchen sink was overflowing with dishes, and dust had accumulated in the corners. It was appalling. The last time I visited, the room had been clean and tidy. What on earth happened? This was unacceptable. As I pondered this, I heard noises coming from the back room. "Ah, grandmother-in-law," I said, heading towards the noise. "Excuse me." Since Bianca's call, I'd been visiting my in-laws' home as instructed. I realized that Bianca probably spends her days out and returns home late at night. It's clear she doesn't manage the house or care for grandmother-in-law at all, despite her demands for me to fulfill my duties as Carmine's wife. It's obvious Bianca isn't doing any of her own. Perhaps she felt empowered because I complied with her demands. Carmine must have been relieved to have a wife, but it's clear I'm still seen as a stranger. "I guess you're just a free housekeeper," Bianca once said aloud. In today's world, treating a daughter-in-law like that is simply unacceptable. Naturally, I reported Bianca's behavior to Carmine, who was consistently apologetic. "You don't have to go there anymore," Carmine told me. He even said he would confront Bianca himself, but I asked him to hold off because I had a plan. I continued visiting the in-laws' home out of concern for grandmother-in-law. Carmine was pleased to see how well grandmother-in-law and I got along. After a few months, while cleaning the in-laws' home as usual, Bianca informed me there's a memorial service at the end of this month, and people will be gathering, but make sure you don't say anything unnecessary, okay? I smiled and replied, "Of course, Bianca." Bianca didn't seem fully satisfied with my compliance. The memorial service was for Carmine's grandfather, who had passed away before I married Carmine. He was known to be a gentle and kind man, and he and grandmother-in-law had a close bond. Often traveling together, Carmine told me they used to hold hands when they went out. Grandfather-in-law died of cancer, and grandmother-in-law had taken great care of him while the in-laws did nothing to help. It was unbelievable. Bianca emphasized the need for early preparation, so I promised, "Yes, I'll arrive 30 minutes early." Despite my assurances, she scolded me. "Your voice is too loud, keep it down." I was tempted to throw the TV remote at her, but managed to restrain myself. "You can talk like that now, but just wait. Get ready." I looked forward to the memorial service with anticipation. I arrived an hour early, despite being told 30 minutes was sufficient. As expected, Bianca was displeased. She stormed out, her anger palpable. "You're too early. There's such a thing as being too much." Honestly, seeing her face, I thought she was a monster. As I quickly cleaned the room and set up the tables, a cheerful male voice said, "Good morning." I went to the entrance to find the staff from a well-known local steakhouse standing there. I had visited the place with Carmine before and remembered the tender, delicious meat, though it was a bit pricey for frequent visits. Bianca, with a dismissive gesture, pushed me aside and greeted the staff with a high-pitched, overly friendly tone. "Good morning. Lovely weather today, isn't it?" "Oh, I heard someone say 'aw' for the first time," she said, and then went back to her preparations. "Hey, hurry up and get the food that arrived early," Bianca's annoying voice echoed through the kitchen. I headed to the kitchen and noticed something off. "Ah, Bianca, there seems to be one meal missing. Was this an oversight? Should I call?" With a cruel smile, Bianca replied, "It's not a mistake. I didn't prepare a portion for you." I was stunned. It was appalling that, with so many people gathering today, I was to be left out of the meal. Feeling insulted, I tried to suppress my frustration, but Bianca's smirk only fueled my indignation. "A housekeeper like you is good enough for dog food. Go on, Sibo." She placed a bowl of leftover dog food in front of me. The humiliation was overwhelming, and I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. I would never understand. This woman must be an alien or something. I had no intention of engaging with someone so impossible to communicate with, so I shouted at Bianca in a made-up language, pretending to speak alien. For a moment, Bianca's face showed a flicker of fear at my outburst. "What? Are you out of your mind? Are you mocking me? Yes, I suppose so. I put up with this nonsense long enough. I can't stand living with someone as nasty as you. I don't know what you're so angry about, but would you be satisfied if we got a divorce? Huh? I won't allow a divorce. I have to hire another housekeeper, and that would be a waste of money. Bianca tried to grab me, but I shouted, "Stop it, how disgraceful." Just then, I noticed Carmine and my father-in-law, Stanley, along with Stanley's brother and his wife, who had traveled from far away. Bianca hadn't seen them because of our argument, but it was clear they had been watching. Stanley's presence seemed to subdue her, possibly due to his intervention or the shock of being caught. The memorial service proceeded modestly, and it was time for the meal. However, grandmother-in-law remained in her room, claiming she wasn't feeling well. Stanley mentioned that the steak here was excellent, something I hadn't had in a while. As I bustled around, bringing drinks and other items, Cindy, my aunt-in-law, called out kindly, "Allison, come and eat. You don't need to do all this." "Thank you, but it seems there's no steak for me," I replied, pretending to be dejected. When Cindy asked why, I said, "I can't really explain. Please ask Bianca." Cindy shot a stern look at Bianca, who seemed to shrink under her gaze. Cindy then fabricated a story. "Oh, I must have ordered the wrong number of steaks. I told Allison to eat my portion, but she refused, saying she was fine. I'm so fortunate to have such a considerate woman marry into the family." Bianca was sweating profusely, her eyes darting nervously. "Is that so?" Cindy asked, glancing at me with concern. "Yes, that's right." I struggled to hold back a laugh as I saw the look of utter disbelief on Bianca's face. Bianca is always so kind. She even points out when I'm lacking in social manners. "Today, instead of steak, she prepared this for me," I said, holding up the dog food Bianca had given me earlier. Bianca turned pale at the sight. "What's going on? What have you done to my precious wife?" Carmine demanded, but Bianca remained silent. In the tense silence, Stanley spoke up. "Well, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? Allison is married now, so..." Stanley's attempt at humor only seemed to aggravate Carmine, who looked ready to confront him. To prevent any further escalation, I decided to call in my ace. "Susan." Everyone turned in surprise at my loud call. From the back room came a cheerful voice. "Yes." Out stepped Susan, grandmother-in-law. It turned out she was the same Susan from my pottery class. We were both taken aback the day Bianca first called me over. I hadn't expected grandmother-in-law to be Susan. We had spent many hours together, finishing housework and enjoying each other's company. The in-laws' home was a two-family setup, and Susan's living area was spotless. Bianca never suspected that Susan was actually in good health, since she was usually out late. We go out to eat and take walks, and I cherished the time spent with Susan. She had asked me not to reveal our connection to the in-laws. Though I was frustrated by Bianca's unreasonable demands, I found solace knowing it was only a matter of time before it would end. Susan had chosen not to attend the memorial service, as she didn't want to face the in-laws. She had always prayed for grandfather-in-law's peace and happiness after his passing. "Why, Mom, don't you have Alzheimer's?" Stanley asked, clearly puzzled. "That's just something this woman misunderstood on her own," Susan said, glaring at Bianca. Bianca, who had been shrinking in the background, now glared fiercely. "I wanted to live alone with my husband, but right after getting married, you moved in with us. You and your husband have been living luxuriously with the money saved from rent," Susan said, her voice firm. "I thought I'd be free when your transfer was decided, but then this woman decided to stay. It was a nightmare. I couldn't even discuss kicking her out because you were never home. I pretended to be hard of hearing to avoid talking to you, and then you assumed I had Alzheimer's. It's absurd." Bianca's face turned a deep red. What I couldn't forgive the most was being ignored during family celebrations. However, I was thrilled when I learned that Allison, whom I could get along with, was the spouse of my grandchildren, Susan said, smiling warmly at me. Bianca, clearly displeased, suddenly blurted out, "I'm sorry, Allison was always so cold to me. I was frustrated, which is why I played that prank today. I truly regret it, but if Allison had been kinder from the start, I wouldn't have. I had no intention of participating in your charade. All the condescending remarks you made, Bianca, I thought I'd have to endure them at home too," I said, pulling out a voice recorder I had secretly kept in my pocket. As I played back the recordings, Bianca's face grew progressively paler, and the tension in the room mounted. Susan and I had planned to expose everything during this family gathering. Despite the incident with the steak, Cindy began to laugh after listening. You talk about social etiquette, but you've never worked a day in your life, Cindy remarked. It turned out Bianca had lived a life of leisure and had never worked. After the children were grown, she had started going out more frequently, leading to constant arguments with Stanley. Stanley himself was a habitual adulterer who came home late every night, maintaining a facade of family involvement for public appearances. Carmine, who had despised this charade, had left home as soon as he graduated high school. That's why you should pack your bags and leave immediately. This house is a cherished memory of my late husband and me. I will never allow you to return, Susan said sternly to Stanley. And you, Carmine, I know you're busy with work, but come and visit occasionally. I understand if you don't want to. Get in such foolish parents, Susan said to Carmine with a hint of sadness. Then we're heading home, I said, as Carmine and I left. Bianca, furious, chased after us. Wait, clear up this misunderstanding. If I'm kicked out, I'll be in trouble. I thought if she didn't want to be in trouble, she shouldn't have harassed me in the first place, but it was too late for regrets now. I don't understand why you don't work. You seem to have a great grasp of how to be a respectful member of society, I said sarcastically as I got into the car. Bianca continued shouting outside, but I was unfazed. She could regret her choices as much as she wanted. As for my former parents-in-law, after being expelled from their home, Bianca went to Stanley's workplace, only to find that he was already living with his mistress. As Susan had predicted, Stanley discarded Bianca swiftly. To make matters worse, it was revealed that Bianca had been having an affair as well, with a married man. She was sued for damages by the man's wife. While the damages were somewhat balanced, due to both former in-laws' infidelities, Bianca would likely face ongoing financial repercussions. Stanley might have a slight reprieve if he received damages from his mistress, but to me, they were now just distant strangers. Despite the phony relationship I had heard about, Carmine has no lingering ties to his former parents, and has no intention of seeing them again. I feel the same way. As for us, we've decided to move into the parents-in-law's home where Susan lives. The house, once filled with unpleasant memories, has been transformed. We removed all of Bianca's collected furniture and made significant changes to the interior, making it feel like a brand new home. Susan, despite her age, remains surprisingly energetic, and I'm more than willing to care for her if she ever needs it. Moreover, our family will be expanding next year, and I'm looking forward to a future filled with happiness alongside my beloved family.